In a recent survey of over 1,500 scientists, they found that a majority of researchers believe there's a reproducibility crisis in research, particularly in psychology, originating with studies that cannot be replicated. Due to this, my colleague Adam Berardi, right up here in the front, was asked to conceptually replicate the infamous study on language and memory by Loftus and Palmer from 1974. Loftus and Palmer revolutionized the way that we understand eyewitness testimonies, asking participants to watch a two-car collision and then ask them how fast the cars were going. Their results showed that asking whether the cars collided, bumped, contacted, or hit rather than smashed impacted the speed estimates participants responded with. Since then, researchers have attempted and failed to replicate Loftus and Palmer's original results with significance. Replication is not only essential to ensure that events are intersubjectively testable rather than mere coincidence, but also important to establish validity. Therefore, Mr. Berardi and I sought to understand what moderator variables may have led to the failed replications of Loftus and Palmer's original results. Berardi's dataset represented a participant pool which was made up of predominantly female participants between the ages of 18 and 80. These participants were recruited via campus directory and social media postings. Participants viewed a 16-second video of a two-car collision where the driver then exits the car and a narrator explains how seatbelts are in almost every car. We then asked them to input details from memory via the survey software Qualtrics. At last year's RMPA conference in Denver, we disseminated our secondary analysis of Berardi's study, which revealed that both the number of discrete details and the percentage of accurate details recalled was significantly higher in females than males, suggesting a biological sex as a moderator variable in the original 1974 study by Loftus and Palmer. To continue the theme of establishing reproducibility, we were curious if there were other sex differences to be found within our data set. To investigate, we looked to establish sex differences in extant evolutionary psychology literature. Sex differences in cognition and memory have been a significant interest to many researchers. Evolutionary psychology posits that differences between males and females reflect evolved psychological mechanisms, not simply due to sociocultural learning. Researchers call this the hunter-gatherer hypothesis. For example, a meta-analysis of 286 studies found males consistently outperform females in visuospatial memory, consistent with ancestral hunting demands. In 2003, Alexander found that male children pay attention to object movement and play more than females. In 1999, Cherney and Riles found that both males and females tended to pay attention to objects which aligned to their stereotypical gender identity. Analysis in both studies indicated that females and males remembered more toys or objects that were congruent with their gender identity, but there was no overall advantage for females. However, one of the most robust and widely accepted sex difference is that of female superiority in object identity and location memory, demonstrated in a meta-analysis of 36 studies in the topic. In line with the evolutionary perspective that females would have evolved mechanisms for successful child rearing, females have been shown to recall more details about people than their male counterparts. With this literature in mind, we created a preliminary coding scheme to retrofit our previously collected data to these established sex differences. As indicated by the superscript M, we hypothesized that males would recall more motion details and details regarding the vehicle in the video. Indicated by the superscript F, we hypothesized that females would recall more details about the driver and objects. We also added exploratory hypothesis about sex differences in recalling information in the foreground versus the background of the video. Due to retrofitting our operation, however, we ended up with a floor effect in 4 of our predetermined codes, which you can see by the subscript 0. These ones were the vehicle detail, vehicle color, driver details, and background details. For the purposes of this presentation, we will not be discussing those results. Using 2 of the same coders from our previous project, these coders were blind to a condition, but not necessarily that hypothesis, since they had been working on our previous project. We asked them to code each participant's answer based on words which correlated to the coding scheme we have created. And if you scan this QR code, you'll be brought to our coding scheme as well. We met weekly to discuss discrepancies in the coding and to ensure quality control. Overall, we found an inter-rater reliability of 0.88. And in the end, we were surprised by our results. After a log transformation to address a positive skew in our motion variable, we found a significant female advantage in the recall of motion details, which is contrary to the visuospatial literature that inspired the hypothesis in the first place. You can see these results as indicated by the purple bar on the graph with a medium to large effect size. In line with our hypothesis, we replicated the research suggesting female superiority in recalling object details. You can see these results as indicated by the light orange bar on the bar graph with a medium effect size. And lastly, in our exploratory analysis of foreground information, we found that females also had the advantage on this task. You can see these results as indicated by the dark orange bar on the graph with a small to medium effect size. We wondered what might these results mean for future literature and sex differences. With the majority of visuospatial tasks finding male advantage in 3D mental rotation, we expected to find that males recalled more information regarding the movement and rotation of the car crash in our visual stimuli. However, female superior ability in verbal episodic recall may account for those differences that we found in our study. Research has found that our culture helps determine allocation of attention, and that in individualistic cultures like in America, people focus more on foreground in both moving and static objects. With many of the objects occurring in the foreground of our video, it is possible that these variables were overlapping in the current study. And due to retrofitting our operationalization, we found a floor effect in 4 of our predetermined variables because our dependent variable did not afford the opportunity to find variance. In the future, we hope to inspire future replication efforts, moving the focus away from sexy, innovative research designs and allocate resources towards ensuring validity of previous research. Our findings both contradict and confirm extant literature, showing a need for future replication efforts to attempt differing paradigms to demonstrate the robustness of these sex differences in memory. As far as personal takeaways, if I were to start this project from the beginning, I would have taken into account the responses we already had from the data set that we used. Because of this oversight, we spent a lot of our time looking into codes that ended up having floor effects we didn't have the data for. So I would have refined the object category to be split into different types of objects rather than focusing on objects as a whole, as well as the codes that ended up having a floor effect, such as the person-related details. So essentially, I would have operationalized this completely different. Overall, this was an incredible learning experience, and I appreciate those of you that are here to share in the journey with me. Thank you. I also want to take a moment to thank Connor Wynn, who is in the audience, one of our amazing coders, and Adam Berardi for his work and putting together this study for us.
Again, we'll have the third group come up. As we transition, we can take one quick question, but then hold the rest of the questions until the end, if there's any.